as a self-education almost, so to speak, because I learned best from talking with people like yourself and learning, like, what have you done with your life and what was your mindset? What challenges did you overcome? And, to get to your position today and all that good stuff. But I guess we can also start that. Speaking of all that, you have a lot of hats. CEO, certified speaking professional, entrepreneur, author, and then you also said you were a stand-up comedian. Now, I mean, have you always just been like that, wanting to wear a lot of hats, or was it just you grew into it, or what?
Yeah, I think I've always done a bunch of different things, just keeps life interesting. But what's fascinating to me is they're all pretty related, like everything that I do for sales and speaking, it's being in front of people, and comedy helps me with the business, and knowing how I prepare for business has helped me be a better comedian. So it's all just me. And, I just keep shifting gears a little.
How long you been doing the comedy?
I started that in 2014.
Oh, recent.
Yeah.
Was that always just a adventure you wanted to do, even growing up? You just decided to go for it in 2014, or was that just?
No, not at all. Like in fact, I wasn't even really a big super fan of stand up. Hadn't really, I didn't have a favorite comedian. My neighbor took a stand up comedy class, and she's an accountant. She was not known for her humor. And when I was sitting in the audience and listening to her do original comedy that she wrote, I was crying, laughing so hard. And I thought, if she could do that, maybe I could do that. And I took the class and learned how to write a joke. And the next thing I knew, I was hooked. There's just nothing better than listening to people laugh at original comedy that you wrote. And I can't stop.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I follow a lot of comedians, big time ones. And, I don't know if you know Burt Kreischer, but he was in Roanoke here a few months ago. But yeah, so I get it. I don't feel like I have the funny bone, and I probably couldn't do it. I feel like it's really tough to write, just a small bit. I mean, when you wrote your first thing, was it really hard to put, pen to paper and make magic happen and write your own bit out? And
well, what I learned is that you don't write the joke. The joke doesn't come fully formed in your brain. And so you can't sit down with a blank piece of paper and say, I'm going to write jokes today. You can sit with a blank piece of paper and write about things that you observe, or things that frustrate you or embarrass you or made you laugh, or things that are just on your mind. And when you start from that point, then ideas come to you just because your brain is thinking of things that you may not consciously be aware of. And so you might notice something that took your focus, and then you ask yourself, I wonder why that commanded my attention in that moment. The kind of comedy that I learned was really personal comedy. So it's not like Seinfeld, like, what's the deal with old people backing out of their driveway? It's not like that. I write about things that are personal to me. So I was going through a difficult divorce at the time my marriage was difficult at the time I took that class. And then as things got progressively worse with that, and that turned into divorce, there was lots of things that I could write in my journal about what frustrated me and upset me, and the uncertainty in life. And I found through comedy, I was able to process things that were difficult for me by looking for the things that would be funny about it. And it really, honestly, I didn't intend it to be at the time, but it was like the best therapy I could have had, because my mindset was anything that doesn't, kill me, anything that frustrates me will make for good comedy eventually. And that's how it worked.
Yeah. I mean, I respect people who write comedy and who can get up there and, do a bit for 15 minutes or whatever. Just a lot of people, I feel like they think they're funny. And I don't want to make this whole conversation about comedy and all that, but just, if somebody told me to go up there and be funny for 5 minutes, it's extremely tough and nerve wracking, and I respect people who are able to do it. And just, I know you're a keynote speaker too. And I feel like, you kind of probably have the you're comfortable being on stage in front of people. And I guess my next question I want to say, like, have you bombed while you're up on stage, doing your comedy, or even as
I have. Yes, I've done enough to have that experience. um, my worst set was in Canada. I was actually in Canada. I was in Toronto for business for a week, and it was right at the time that my divorce was getting finalized. And I just showed up at a club and said, they were having an open mic night, and I got some time on their stage. Now, Canadians are known for being real nice people and don't rock the boat. So my humor at the time was pretty mean, if I'm honest, like just
okay,
pretty mean. And and also it was a Wednesday night about 10 o'clock or 10:30 by the time I got on. So who's out at that time are the young 20 somethings.
sure,
And I was not a young 20 something. So they hadn't been through some of the experiences that I was writing comedy about. And so my jokes didn't land for a number of reasons. But I remember hearing one woman say to another up right in the front of the stage, like, her jokes are kind of mean. And I was like, oh my God. like that was, I realized in that moment that it didn't quite have the depth and of a lot of different types of sets that I could have done.
mhm,
And now, many years later, now I can look at an audience and go, oh, okay, these are the 20 somethings. They're going to like my dating jokes. And this is an older crowd. They'll like my mom jokes. And, so I have a little bit of wiggle room to make the adjustment based on the audience, which is something that I learned from my business experience. How do you read the room? You want to make appropriate sales pitches to appropriate, decision makers. You've got to know who you're talking to. And I think that might give me an edge in the comedy world, because a lot of comedians, they have their set, it's what they do, and they don't really pay attention to who's in the room and how they might adjust their material so that it's really a good fit for the audience that night.
yeah, you just can't do that every night. I would think so, right? But I guess there is a sense of, like you said, in your business world, I mean, you kind of do know who you're getting ready to do, I guess, sales with, and your marketing and all that good stuff. So it is kind of good to do the research, and then you can go in and tie in everything towards them. And so let's take it back from comedy and go back to, I guess, day one of your career. I mean, where'd you start out at, and like how did you get the experience that you got and gained and learned all that good stuff?
Well, I think I was one of the lucky ones. I knew really early on in my life what I wanted to do. I just didn't know exactly how it would work out, but I come from a long line of salespeople. So I guess it's no different than, kids who want to grow up and be doctors because everybody in their family is a doctor or some other profession. So my dad sold advertising. My mom sold real estate. My grandfather had a car dealership. My grandmother sold Avon. So it was really never a question of what was I going to do? It was really more a question of what was I going to sell?
Yeah.
And I ended up in the radio advertising business. That was really career part one. And I did really well there. I liked it. I liked being with people. I liked being, it was a fun business to be in, young and single, like going to concerts. And it was a blast.
Very cool.
So I did really well. I worked my ass off, and I became a sales manager pretty early in my career, a little probably before I was ready, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And in that experience, I had put myself through some management training and some sales training with this organization. And then the radio station was being sold. And so I had this like choice point, like, do I go to another radio station and keep doing what I'm doing? Or do I jump ship now and try something different? And I ended up working for the company that I was a client of theirs in sales training. And I really loved it because basically what I was selling was sales training. And then as I got more clients, I got more opportunities to be in front of the room leading the programs. And then I got better at that. And I kind of realized, like, I think I can create some better material than what I'm training. And the next thing you know, it's 1998 and I opened up my own sales management training, coaching, consulting business. And I've been doing it ever since.
That was a bold move. Was it pretty nerve wracking in 1998 to open up that first business and take that leap of faith?
It was maybe not as much of a leap of faith as it is for many entrepreneurs. A lot of entrepreneurs are very good at what they do. They don't really know how to get business. In my case, my whole business was helping people get business. So I was pretty confident that I was going to be able to grow my own client base. I had done it for years at that point, working for someone else. And now it was just that I was going to do it for myself. So wasn't too hard.
And I mean, look what you are now. I mean, it must have really taken off. I mean, obviously, I mean, just I mean, I read a little bit what you sent to me. And you seem like you have a good set strategy, I guess you could say, in order to make it work. With being open minded, your mindset, the mechanics, the motion of it all. And I mean, was that just
Mhm.
something also along you just picked up along the way, or you had a mentor kind of give you that advice, or just good and bad roads that you?
Yeah. I mean, I've had many wonderful mentors over the course of my career. I feel very lucky for things that I've learned from other people's experiences have been, incredible shortcuts for me over the years. It's interesting because in the very beginning, when I started teaching people how to get and grow their business, I really focused a lot on the mechanics of selling. So here's what to say, right? And here's the sales process, and here's what you say at each stage of the sales process. And back then, I mean, that was the 90s, right? So it was like very standard sales 101 kind of stuff. Literally, at that point, we weren't teaching people to say, I'm going to be in your area. Is Tuesday or Thursday better? Like that kind of stuff was already old and on its way out. But there were definitely some sort of techniquey kind of things that I had learned to say to get and grow business. And that got me to a certain point. But one of the reasons I left the sales training company that I had been working for was, and actually I should say in 1998 was when, so I opened up my own business, but it was under somebody else's brand.
Okay.
So I was still teaching somebody else's material for about 10 years. And then in 2008, it really was my own system that I had developed and expanded on, because what all I was teaching was the mechanics of selling. And there's so much more to it, in fact, it's funny now that you're asking me this question. There were a couple of guys that were in my training class, Stephen and Daniel, if I remember correctly. They both worked for the same company. They sold the same things at the same price point, same territories. I mean, they even looked alike, right? And they sat in my training class,
Yeah.
learning the same material from the same trainer in the same moment. And Stephen did really great. He put everything that I was teaching him into action. He had great results. Daniel, not so much. And it frustrated me because I thought, how can I take credit for Stephen's success if I don't take responsibility for the fact that Daniel hasn't really done anything with this? And it helped me see that there was more to it than the mechanics of selling. That's when I kind of started expanding my own knowledge base and learning about emotional intelligence and how mindset could really sabotage your success without you even knowing it, even if you knew the right things to say. Um, and the importance of focusing on the right action plan so that you are in consistent motion, and what does that plan look like, and all of that. And I think that's really what helped me round out my own philosophies and methodology. And that's been really helpful for my clients ever since.
Yeah. No, I mean, while I was down at the gym tonight, I was sitting here doing my workout, thinking about, I get clear minds, I guess, when I'm working out. And I was thinking about how, talking to you tonight about how sales, especially all around us, just because, I train and I coach CrossFit on the side, but, you know, you have to sell, a lot of people, I would never say I'm, selling anything to somebody, but if you do think about it, I actually am selling the program, the CrossFit, the methodology, the training behind it. And you don't even think about it, but yeah, I would have never. I don't know. I never would have put that together until tonight while I was sitting there down there, and that goes along with anything. Just I had a colleague recently quit and moved to a job where they were selling magazines or whatever, and she asked me, "Do you think you could do that?" And I was like, "No, I don't have the type of personality to sell anything." But then again, that's when it hit me. I was like, well, I am kind of selling fitness, I guess, in a certain way. And then, when I'm
Yeah.
at my 9 to 5. So yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and then, do you think,
Well,
yeah,
and I think that you're not necessarily selling the process and the workouts and all of that. You're really selling them the opportunity to get the result that's important to them.
there you go.
So,
So,
our business, my company is called SELLect Sales, but we spell it SELLECT. And that's very deliberate. But we actually want you to stop selling,
oh,
because selling is pushy and aggressive. It's like nobody wants to be sold.
I agree.
People want to select the appropriate solutions for the problems and challenges that they are dealing with. And so what we teach is not how to sell, but it's really about how to get selected. And that is by using your expertise to ask the best questions. So if you think about all the things that you know about CrossFit and the benefits of that and the experiences that your clients have had by working with you, then you can ask prospective clients the kinds of questions that may help them think deeper than anybody else has had them think about what's possible for them by training with you. And that's how they know that you're an expert at what you do, not because you push on them all of the things you know about CrossFit, but because you use that expertise to ask great questions so they see a new possibility for themselves.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Make that human connection, I guess you could say. And that, there you go. Yeah. Not just selling everything, but exactly like you said. Yeah, you make that human
Yeah,
connection. People take a little, I guess, a trust in you, and then they might follow you along that journey. Interesting.
exactly.
Never thought about it that way. I like that.
There
Um,
you go.
guess that's why you're good at what you do. So, let's. You said emotional intelligence. I wanted to ask you about that earlier. I mean, all right. So, I guess, what is your definition of emotional intelligence? And let's give the listeners like a little bit of that.
We'll start there.
Okay.
So, emotional intelligence is how well you understand your own emotional triggers and responses and the impact that that has on other people. So, as an example, I use an assessment tool in my business for emotional intelligence. Actually, probably the most scientifically validated assessment available in the market. It's by a company called MHS Multi Health Systems, and they're out of Toronto, as a coincidentally no relation to my comedy story. Um, but two of the things that I can assess for are reality testing and optimism, as an example. So let's say you are really high in your optimism, you just always see possibilities, it's all going to work out, silver lining, yada yada. But let's say you're not equally balanced with a good strong dose of reality check. So that can show up in a lot of different ways. In a sales situation, prospect might say, you know what, Chris, I really like what you're talking about. And yeah, this sounds really good. So you hear that through your optimism. And even though you might be trained to say all of the right questions to test that reality, out of your mouth is going to come, great, all right, well, let's just touch base and we'll get this going. And I'm excited to work with you. Now, that's not what they said, but that's what you heard because of how you're wired. And when you can see that relationship on paper and you have a certified coach who knows how to interpret this information on this assessment through a sales lens, then I can point out to you, okay, well, it's good that you have an optimistic outlook, but look at how it's not balanced with reality testing. This means when I teach you how to ask better questions in a sales process, I also need to teach you to say, hey, look, I tend to hear things through my little happy ears. So if you don't mind, like, talk real straight to me about, where you're feeling about, the opportunity. And I'll probably ask you a lot of questions just to make sure that we're both on the same page, or whatever you say. But if I don't teach you to say that, then your optimism is going to lead the way every single time. And you won't always be dealing with reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. But does somebody just build emotional intelligence just by through practice and actually trying it, or is it something that most people just kind of already have, or is it intuition, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, Chris. And the reason why I love using this as a tool in my business and have for, more than a decade is because it is something that you can control. It is something that you can deliberately take steps to change and improve. It generally improves over time as we get older and we have more experiences. Our emotional intelligence levels tend to grow. Now, there are some unhealthy personality disorders where that is not the case. But it's not like a behavioral assessment where your natural style is pretty much your natural style. And you've heard of disc profiles, I'm sure, like, the 4 ways that we can look at behavioral personalities. And, if you're a person who doesn't like change, or a person who's more analytical or more people oriented, like those kinds of things are just natural to who you are. You can adjust your approach based on the situation, but that's pretty much not going to change unless there's some major life event that's going to throw you into a different category. But emotional intelligence isn't like that. And that's why I think it's so great, because why would you want to assess something that you can't really do anything about? Like, you are how you are, but emotional intelligence, you can do something about it. And it makes a huge difference, especially if you're in a management or leadership role, to understand how your emotions impact everybody around you. A boss comes into the office, they're in a bad mood. No one's getting anything done because everybody thinks it's about them. But if you can walk in and go, hey guys, this has nothing to do with you. I had a fight with my spouse. Okay, like heads down, let's get some work done. Now it's a whole different ball game, but you need to be able to understand what's triggering you and how to articulate it in an appropriate way.
Do you think that, it seems like, a lot of my, I mean, I work in higher education, a lot of meetings and trainings and leadership things I've been to and conferences, they say to be transparent, I guess with your emotions and, I guess what you want to get out of your goals and all that stuff. I mean, do you think there's a good and bad thing to being transparent, or should you like hold some of your cards in without showing all of your emotions at once all the time? Like, I hope this kind of makes sense what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, no, I understand. And, I mean, Brene Brown has made a fortune talking about vulnerability in the workplace and all of that. And I'm a proponent of her work and the idea of being transparent and vulnerable, especially in leadership roles. But I do want to add to that I think intentional vulnerability, deliberate transparency. So it's not just transparency for the sake of it, but it's thoughtful. And so, as an example, let's say there's some stressful situation. A leader's job is to buffer the stress from everyone else so that everyone else can get done what they need to get done and they can focus without that layer of stress bothering them. That's pretty much what leaders do, is they shelter and protect. Now, if you have the mindset of like total transparency, you might be passing along some things that are going to trigger or stress people out and keep them from doing the work that needs to be done to minimize the stress. So I think, you want to be strategic about the specific situations and areas where you're transparent and sharing a little bit more from a vulnerable place. But, leaders, we want them to be human, which is to say, like, okay, be vulnerable so that I know you're human, but also I don't want to if I'm reporting to you, I don't want to feel like I'm your shrink either, right? Like, like I still want you to take the lead and be in control. So I think there's some balances, and that's, it's a delicate individual, conversation.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, and it seems like I think you kind of touched on it. Depends on the situation and the area and the work or whatever. But just because I took so many classes, with college and masters about, leadership roles and what type of leader are you? And, you had to actually answer that in interviews, which I always hated. And I was like, I don't know. I've only been, a manager at Walmart at one point while I was in college just to get beer money and pay my rent, and I don't know. I was just scheduling people. But, I felt like, I was like, I didn't feel like I felt into one type of leadership role that was perfect for me, like what is it? A dictator, autocratic, and I can't remember the others. I hope I said that right. I may have said that wrong. But anyway, yeah, I guess that was the whole point, like being situational. And then do you want to be feared or liked as a boss? And you think that one leadership is better than the other. And I mean, you could feel like you could go on all day, but it's just a matter of kind of what you're saying. You found methodologies and ideologies that work for you. And I think that's what you just got to stick to your guns with ultimately. And it's just maybe it's a matter of trial and error, damn, I don't know.
Well, I think, the other thing that's interesting about this as a leadership conversation, I've done a lot of work with emotional intelligence with leadership teams. I just was doing a project for a company that has 55 leaders across different practice areas. It's a national multi-million-dollar company. And they had me do an emotional intelligence specific for leaders assessment for everyone on their team. And each of them got a one-on-one, 100% personal, private debriefing meeting with me. And every one of them, my first question is, tell me what's already on your radar screen as a leader. What are you already working on? What do you already know is either the type of leader you want to be, or something that triggers you, or something that frustrates you as a leader? And everybody had a different issue. And so then I looked at the data about them, and we talked about how to apply how they're wired to their specific issue. So it's very custom pinpoint. In another scenario, I was doing a training for a leadership team, and I asked them, describe the attributes of the best boss you've ever worked for. And then I had them describe the attributes of the guys and gals that they did not appreciate reporting to. And so we, created this, these lists all over the room. And what's fascinating is that everything that people resonated with, what made somebody a good boss, were things like they listened to me, they had my back, I could trust them. They were confident, but not overly confident, right? Like they were balanced, and all of the things had to do with emotional intelligence. Nothing had to do with, they knew everything there was to know in our industry. They're great with numbers. Like none of that had anything to do with what made somebody want to get up and work for this individual. And I think that's very telling. And that's why emotional intelligence for leaders is so important, because that's what people are relating to.
What are your thoughts on this? You said that they found out that they like somebody who was confident, but not overly confident. But to be a leader, to be successful, to be a CEO, I mean, do you have to have a certain ego to be successful, or can you do that without a certain ego?
I was having this debate with somebody recently about, like being the president, right? I think that's this is going to be an outlier example, but honestly, I don't think you could be the president of the United States without being somewhat of a narcissist. We can debate who is the most narcissistic or not. Doesn't really matter, but you can't, huh?
We don't have to go down that road, but yeah.
No, we won't, for sure won't. Yeah. But my point is, that's maybe an extreme, like you'd have to have an extreme level of confidence to think that you could do that level job. Now, CEO of a company, leader of a company or something like that, you don't necessarily need a big ego to do that. You do need strong levels of confidence, self-regard, I would say. And I think there's a difference between self-regard and self-esteem. So how I look at that is self-esteem comes from the outside in, right? So you want to be liked, or and somebody tells you do a good job. That's, I get my needs met. I get my confidence because you told me I did a good job. Yeah. Self-regard emanates from the inside out. That's that inner confidence that I know I'm good. I trust my abilities. And when that comes from the inside out, that's unshakable. When it's something from the outside in, that's situational. And so I think what it takes for a strong leader is to have a high level of self-regard. As long as it's in balance with some of the other emotional intelligence attributes, it's going to be a positive thing for you and for the rest of the team. If self-regard is so out of whack with all of the other attributes, that's going to come across as a little too much of a good thing. And in that case, it's not about raising your level of emotional intelligence. It may be about bringing one outlier down to a level that's more in balance with everything else.
Humility? Is that what you're saying? You have a humble experience?
I think so. I think a little humility is a good thing.
I mean, I think I usually ask this question a lot, but that do you have to go through these certain experiences in life in order to be, humbled, a divorce, a breakup, lose your job, I don't know, something like you missed the last shot at the game or whatever, but you learn from these experiences and find out who you are and learn how to either keep up, getting after it, showing up to work every day. And maybe that's part of being successful. But, some people might argue that, no, I don't think you don't need those experiences, that you can just walk through life and, get whatever experiences you need out of a book.
I think there's two kinds of people. There's the people that let their experiences define them. And then there's people that let their experiences outline them, like it expands who they are, what they're capable of, the lessons that they've learned. And the real distinction between those two is the level of introspection and the depth to which you do understand your own emotional, you have an emotional self-awareness.
Yeah.
So we've all been through bad things. If you live past 25 years old, you've had some negative experiences over some point in your life.
Sure.
So do they destroy you? Does it determine your outlook and cast a shadow over everything? Or do you acknowledge how you've overcome that or the lessons that you've learned from that and allow that to expand what's possible for you and how you can contribute and who you are and how you move through the world? And I think that's I think that's really probably one of the main things with being a good, successful leader or salesperson. Pick a profession, but it's how your experiences inform who you become.
While you were talking, I was wondering if younger generations are losing that, because they are, I work in higher education also, and that, we see these senses of entitlement, I guess you could say, and going back kind of being narcissist or whatever. But, instead of actually trying to overcome these experiences, go through a hard path or whatever down the road, that they'd rather just point a finger and blame it in somebody else's fault and never truly get that experience and finding out what they're made of. Part of the reason why I do, I've said this before, but, doing CrossFit, it pushes me to limits that, as far as physically and mentally, that I never thought I would be at, and now 8 years later, something happens, it's like, hey, that's really not that bad. I get stuck in traffic. All right, no big deal. I'll get there when I'm getting there. It's no big deal to me. But I guess that's what I'm saying is that, we do these hard things to find out what we're made of, and then we keep showing up, and that's what to do the work, and that time and effort will make you to whoever you want to be if you have that goal in life. Or if your goal in life is just to, be the Walmart guy and getting beer money and for college or whatever, that's fine if you're happy. I don't care what you do, but I don't think you should go around complaining, obviously saying, well, oh man, that could have been me who was the CEO of, Microsoft or whatever, but I just didn't do it. And I was like, well, it's kind of on you, bro. It's not, you shouldn't point fingers. Kind of look at yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah. I don't know. I've kind of always believed that the dreams that keep coming back come back for a reason, and you don't really get it wouldn't even occur to you to have a dream or an aspiration if it wasn't possible at some level. Like, I'm 5'0". At no point in my entire life did it ever occur to me that I could be a professional basketball player. Like, there's no amount of work I'm going to do. There's no amount of people or networking or connections that I would have that outcome turn out. But it has occurred to me to be a professional entertainer, and I have accomplished that already in one area of life with my business programs. And you could say as a professional speaker, I'm entertaining and educating, and I've accomplished that goal. Now I've noticed for myself that that same kernel of a goal is wanting to manifest a little bit differently. And so I wrote a one-woman comedy show. It's a little inspirational because that's kind of how my business brain is wired, but it's comedy throughout. And it's really my life story as told through the lens of a comedian. But it's not just my story. I want you to see your story through the lens of a comedian. I want you to see what's possible for you when you hear my story, and I can laugh at all the ups and downs throughout the course of my life. I want that to inspire other people to get the lessons from their own lives and laugh at some of the experiences that may have hurt them, because it transforms how you see your future when you rewrite your life story from the standpoint of how is this funny? Mm-hmm. And so now that dream that has always been to inspire people to see more and create more possibilities for their own lives. Like at first it was about, let me help you sell more. And now it's about, let me help you laugh more and create new things in your life. And I found the best way to connect with people is by helping them laugh. And so, but I know that I wouldn't have the dream of entertaining audiences with a one-woman show if it wasn't possible for me to write it, produce it, perform it. And I did that. I did that in 2019. I wrote, produced, and performed the show. And at the end of 2022, I'm taking the show on tour. I'm literally doing the thing. And so we'll see how it goes.
I mean, I'm wondering if during the pandemic, a lot of people actually stopped and looked at themselves like that and just said, hey, I'm just walking through life, not asking questions, just going day by day. Because I was part of this too. I can talk about this, but, and not asking questions. And all of a sudden, 10 years went down the road, but then life came to a halt, I guess you could say during the pandemic. But that's the reason, like, hey, this is my time to get out of this, bullshit job and maybe try to do something better with my life and, take on a new project, learn a new skill, lose that weight or whatever. But yeah, I think it's just I guess we're kind of circling around it, but you just got to figure out life experiences, get to know yourself, learn what you're good at, learn how you can improve and, and like get you a mentor if that's what you're looking for. That's one thing I've always regretted, that I was talking about it the other day that, I had mentors sort of, but I kind of passed them over just because I was that young guy, not really looking towards my future. I was just kind of looking at the now moments, during college or whatever. I didn't really care like what was after college, it was just a matter of I'm just living for now. And then, obviously after college, it's like, oh shit, life has started passing me by. Everyone else is moving on with their life and I didn't do anything. And that's when I was scared of being a loser. That's the reason I went and got my master's degree. And I was like, I got to do something. I can't go move back in with mom and pop, or everyone will think I'm a loser. I'll never get married that way. Nobody wants to date a guy living with their mom and pop still. So, but yeah, I guess that was like kind of the kicking off point of like, hey, I need to look at myself and start self-improving and go after what Chris wants and try to get to a point in life and figure out how to do that. And that's either through, reading books, talking with people like you, learning your paths and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that point. That was what all I had.
Well, I, as the mother of an 18-year-old son who is headed off to college in a few months, I hope he has that same epiphany one day, because he sure as heck is not moving back into my basement. But when he turned 18, I gave him, I feel very strongly that as an adult, one of the hallmarks of an adult is your library. And while I don't think I haven't seen my kid read a book since we were reading Thomas the Train together when he was 6. But at some point, I know he's going to pick up a book And so I started, my gift to him was starting his library. So I pulled together the 18 books that most influenced my life, my thinking. I actually asked some strong men in my life to give me their recommendations. Like, there's only so much I can teach you as a single mom. What are the books that men read to become good men? And those are the things that I want my son to learn. And so I know that one day, maybe 12 years from now, he's going to look at that bookshelf and he's going to need an answer. And maybe it's there for him. But I think, you've heard it before. It's the books that we read, it's the relationships that we have that really do shape our lives. And it's also, just making sure that we're open-minded so that we know that more is possible for us. And if we just keep an open mind and look at our experiences as like pathway to whatever that next thing is. Like, I didn't know as a kid that being on the cheerleading team or trying out for the high school musical was all part of the master plan of getting me comfortable being in front of people. And now that I have perspective, I see what I do for a living, what my dreams and goals are for my future. And now I can look back and go, oh, well, of course I did those things. Of course I was drawn to that because that was important for me to get to where I am now. And I just think it's fascinating.
I wanted to ask, what books, or you don't have to list all 18 of them, but what were your top two, top three of
Uh,
what changed your
I
life?
mean, there's some classics, right? There's some classics like Think and Grow Rich and, Win Friends and Influence People, right? So, but then there were things, one of the books that a friend of mine actually wrote, he runs a men's group called Man Uncivilized. And I think his book is fantastic for men to kind of understand the tenets of being a good man. So I got that book on the shelf. And there's another book from a sales perspective, but also I think it's just good in terms of being influential and understanding the things that have influence over you. I put the book Influence by Robert Cialdini on the bookshelf. Mindset is on the bookshelf by Carol Dweck. It's really about having a growth mindset and how different that is from a fixed mindset. Like, if you always believe that you can learn something, then the whole world is open to you. And that's one of the things I would love for my son to embody is that philosophy. What else is on there? I think there's a couple Tony Robbins. There's definitely at least one Tony Robbins book in there because I'm a fan. I'm a super fan.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, while you were talking, I wanted to make sure I said this though. Even doing podcasts and even engaging out in the real world now, that you have to have, I feel like, an open mind now, and being not don't be married to your ideas is what I'm trying to say. Is that just because,
Right.
like you said, talking about growth and stuff, if you stop growing, if you stop learning, and then you say, hey, no, my way is the only way of doing something, you're going to learn that this is going to cause conflict. This is going to cause maybe a road that you don't want to go down on. And that was my whole thing, that I wanted us to say that, there's nothing wrong with being open-minded, and I know people like to be right. And that's probably what causes a lot of heated debates that this world doesn't need. But, even just being open-minded doing this, before, you and I started talking tonight, we'd only exchanged a couple emails or whatever. So I had no idea what I was going to get into tonight, and for the most part, I did a little research on you, but I don't go do a whole, full blown research paper and to get everything to know about you. But I just get, some good talking points that I want to bring up. But yeah, I guess that was my point, that maybe the world does need to be a little bit more open-minded, just to not be successful, but just, just to sit down and have, if you want to debate something, have a civilized, rational adult debate. It doesn't always have to be, right versus left, black versus white, and, causes uproar of something that this world don't need. Maybe I shouldn't have said all that, but that's just kind of my thought.
No, I think I, I I think you're absolutely right. And one of my most popular keynotes that I do for conferences now is really on the 4 magic words that transform fill in the blank: sales, leadership, life, etc. And it's really not that complicated. If I ask you, are you interested in hearing about the solutions that I offer in my business, it's pretty easy for you to say, no, I'm not interested. Are you interested in learning the major points of our political party? Are you interested in this or that? It's pretty easy to say, no, I'm not interested. I already have my way of thinking and being. But if I say, um, are you open to having a conversation so that we can really understand each other's point of view? Are you open to having a conversation to see if the things that we offer could be a solution for you? It's hard for you to say you're not open to it,
Mhm.
because the moment you say you're not open, it's about who you are, it's about your identity. And most of us, according to a Pepperdine University study, most of us would like to think that we're more open minded than the average. And for that to be true, that those four words, are you open to, really can shift a conversation and create a new possibility where one didn't exist, just by tapping into that universal feeling that we all want to be seen and recognized as an open-minded person.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% that, and some people say they're open-minded, but and kind of using this as an analogy that, they say that, but then when it comes down to it, they're not. But just because, speaking of books and everything, I'm currently reading Sacred Cow right now. It's by Rob Wolf. It's just a
Oh
book
yeah.
about, yeah, about meat or whatever. But they were talking about studies, how people will say, they are eating very, very well, and they're whatever. I guess the whole study is what I'm trying to say is that when they get down to the actual study, they actually lie about what they're eating and eating way healthier than what they actually are, and that's what obscures most studies. So yeah, I mean,
Mm,
just I don't know if that deals with or coincides with being open minded, but don't lie. If you want to take this test and learn more about you and learn about your health and what you're eating, if it's good for you, I mean, you gotta sit down, have the conversation, be upfront about what's going on, and not obscure the results.
exactly.
Hope that kind of related to what I was just trying to say for you. So sometimes I get started talking and I was like, wait, was that where I was going with that point? I don't know. So anyway. But yeah, I mean, reading is very powerful that I've learned. I try to read one book a month. And when I
Mhm.
say read, I'm an audiobook guy too. But it's worked, I mean, I learned a lot from it, and you don't have to believe everything that you're reading and take in like exact word for word for word, but you can pick up pearls and gems, and I read a lot of
Yeah.
self-motivating books and stuff like that. And one thing I've learned that just because, I don't know, we were talking about Bill Gates, or well, I said CEO of Microsoft, but just because you read his biography or whatever doesn't mean you have to do exactly everything that he did to get to where he's at. If that's who you want to be, or whatever. But you can use, like I said, pearls, some gems, some tidbits in order to take with you, learn on your way, just like you have your strategies and methodologies, and learn how to turn that into something, a diamond, make something powerful, some magic. There we go.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but I got a couple questions I wanted to ask you, and they're kind of like would you rather questions, and they're kind of stupid little things
Ooh.
I like to ask towards the end sometimes, just depending on how I'm feeling or whatever. And I thought this one might be pretty good since we're talking about books and stuff we like and all
All
that.
right.
But all right, so I feel like I probably know the answer to this one for. So, would you rather be chronically underdressed or overdressed?
um, I would say overdressed.
Is that just because?
Like, well, I feel like, relating back to confidence, I'm more confident. If I'm overdressed for the situation, I can own that
Mhm.
a lot easier than if I feel like I'm not dressed for the occasion. Uh, that's gonna, I'm gonna be ruminating over, oh, why didn't I wear that other thing? So yeah, that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
I like it. Just because, half the time unless I'm at work, I'm wearing just gym clothes or whatever. But, there is something powerful when you go wear, a power suit, power tie, and it's just
Yep.
good, or I do anyway. And sometimes I wonder that, back in, I forgot what era it was, but everybody wore suits and ties, like a top hat or whatever, and it was great.
Yes.
It's cool to watch
Mm.
movies like that. It was like, now it's just like, if we went back to that, what would the life be like if everyone had to wear a suit and tie again? I guess like the Mad Men, they did it in those days. I don't
I would be very happy. I love to dress up, and I love to, like, feel that swagger when you know you look good and you're rocking it. I just feel
know.
like that's
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the best version of me.
I mean, going back into ego and confidence and all that. But yeah, I agree. Like, if I'm in a wedding or whatever, you got to put on a suit and tie and you come walking out and you got your Conor McGregor walk on, you're just, let's do this. So, anyway, but
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that. So, all right. Next one I got. Would you rather have one song in your head for the rest of your life or never to be able to hear music again?
Oh, no doubt I would rather have one song in my head the rest of my life, and I already know what the song is.
Oh, wow. It is.
The song is called Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield, and it is the song that defines my life. I love that song. I love every word in it. I love the music. I love the little gospel choir that comes in the middle. It's a fantastic song, and it it's who I am.
And it defines your life, you think?
I
Oh,
think so. I mean, it really captures the. I mean, basically the lyrics are, you know, the rest. Like the rest is yet unwritten. So I listen to it and I think I don't even know what's coming next in my life, but I'm so excited. And the fact that when I wrote my one woman show, it's literally called Book of Merit. So the idea that that's been my favorite song for more than a decade, and that I literally wrote the story of my life and she talks about, the rest is yet unwritten, and it's just like, it really is the story of my life. She
okay.
nailed it.
Huh. Okay. Well, being a person, a comedian, and all of your stature, keynote speaker, and all that good stuff. Here's a good one. So, what is your ultimate nightmare social situation?
I don't have a nightmare social situation. I love social situations. Nightmare social situation. That's a good question, Chris.
I feel like
I would,
you answer that.
um, yeah, I don't know. I like all social situations.
Did you learn to make yourself learn all social situations?
No, I think that's just a natural, innate trait of mine. I've always been the person who wants everybody else to feel comfortable. And so I think that's probably why I've always been, the one to crack the joke or bring people together. I am always like the, I mean, sometimes I'm life of the party, right? Quote unquote, but I'm good at getting people, like, I'm good at breaking the ice. I can go up to anybody and start a conversation about anything. I'm not intimidated in those situations at all. And I don't think that's anything that I've learned. I think that's just how I'm wired.
I feel like breaking the ice can be pretty tough for a lot of people sometimes. I know, like when I go to my trainings on higher end stuff, they make us do those stupid icebreakers just to get them going, and just, I mean, I get what they're doing, but it's also kind of like, but I guess going back to the nightmare social situation was that I actually learned to try to make myself more sociable, just because when I first started in higher ed, and even after before that, really, just that I'd be the guy that would go to people I know and sit at that table rather than trying to find people I don't know.
Mm.
And again, it's powerful, and it's once you can break the ice, and no pun intended through icebreaker, but break the ice and put yourself through that, and you're like, "Ooh, I can do this." I can open myself up a little bit and make a new friend. And even if they don't want to hear what I got to say, at least I can say I tried, rather than just being a guy sitting in the corner being weird.
I think we overcomplicate it, right? Because if you think about it, most people are uncomfortable in those situations. So all you have to do is go up to someone and say, "Are you as uncomfortable in these situations as I am?" And then bam, you've bonded. That's it. That's the icebreaker. And they're thrilled that you did it because they didn't want to do it. So you can't lose.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just remember that one line, it's just like a pickup line with a girl. But if you can just remember that, even if it fails 9 times out of 10, at least one time it'll probably work. So, all
Exactly.
right. Are you a foodie? Do you like food?
I like food. I like basically anything that anybody else has cooked. If it's up to me, I'm still stuck on Pop Tarts, mac and cheese. I burn salad. I mean, I'm terrible. So, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this question. All right, this will be the last one, and I know we're getting short on time, and I'll let you get out of here. So, if you had to eat all your meals at one restaurant for the rest of your life, what would it be? Or which one would it be?
Is Baskin Robbins considered a
Sure, good.
restaurant?
That's me.
I'm an ice cream girl. One restaurant, what would it be? Wow. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe something like Cheesecake Factory that has like a huge menu so I could have a lot of different variety and never get bored, and the portions are so big I would always be full.
Right. I'm not a foodie by any means, but I'm one of those guys. Like I can tell you what I don't want to eat rather than what I will eat. Like I hate grits, and
It's very specific.
yeah, I don't know why, but I don't know what it is. But I mean, like, so let's say if I was, at your house and you fed them to me, I would still eat them, but I wouldn't like it. I'm that type of person. I look at food as more of a fuel source than I rather, like how people get so obsessed over foods and all that good stuff.
Oh, I just made a note of that. So if I ever have you over for dinner, I'm 100% serving you grits just to watch your face.
Okay, I'm throwing that, I hope she don't remember. But all right, so if people want to find you, find all that good stuff, the comedy show, anything you want to give out, plug anything you have, right now, how do they do it?
Yeah. Thanks. Best way to find me is my website. It's Merit Kahn, MERITKAHN .com. And if you put a /podcast on that URL, that'll take you to a page where you can learn a little bit more about some of the business stuff I do. And if you want to find out, like, there's a bunch of downloads on there that could be very interesting for you. And anything that once you give me your contact information, you'll also be added to the list to know about the comedy tour coming up. So get on the list. You never know.
I have one more question I just thought of. So,
All right.
merit, is that like, you give merit an award? Is that what you're after?
Yes, my parents' philosophy was that a child grows into the meaning of their name. So I don't know how they knew that I would be worthy of praise when I was just born, but they nailed it. And I used to date a guy whose last name was Worthy. So I was this close to being merit worthy.
Yeah, I just put that connection right when you said all that. I was like, merit, like that. Okay. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, worthy of praise. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for doing this. This was fun. Hopefully
My pleasure.
some people got some good pearls and gems out of this and at least listen to some stupid questions. So anyway, thank you again, though. You're a badass person.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're out of here, folks.